You'd had enough of the foolishness. You voted according to your faith, and one of the victories you won was for religious freedom for all Americans. Hi, I'm Stuart Shepard, and this is a very special edition of First Liberty Live. We are streaming to you live from our headquarters here in Texas. We didn't know what we get to talk about today, but now we do, and we're going to talk about it particularly in light of the courts, the law, and religious freedom. We're going to talk to First Liberty's President, CEO, and Chief Counsel Kelly Shackelford. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Stuart.
Hi, first, just before we get to the detail of what we're experts on in particular, I just want to reflect on this moment in history. Donald Trump just defeated Joe Biden. He defeated Kamala Harris. He defeated the legacy media. He defeated the social media giants. He defeated the tech giants. He defeated the pollsters. By the grace of God, he even dodged an assassin's bullet. What does that tell us about where we are as a nation right now?
Well, one of the things, going into last night, somebody asked me, what do you think is going to happen? And I said, I could see what I'm seeing in the polls and all this kind of thing. But I said, just from a God perspective, I think it's fairly clear that God saved his life on the assassin's bullet.
Yeah.
I mean, to hit somebody's ear and miss their head, that's very, very difficult. And so I figured God had something for him to do. And now we see what it is. And, this is the first time since the late 1800s that we've had somebody be president, go out, and then come back and win.
Grover Cleveland. I memorized it in elementary school. Yeah.
So very unusual. I think it's unusual because Trump is such an unusual a politician, and God, what a tough guy. I mean,
have mercy.
With everything he went through, the assassins' attempts to take him off the ballot, attempts to really take away his business, attempts to put him in jail. All this,
which are still going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still stuff to happen ahead on that.
Pretty amazing. But also, I think there's an alignment of the parties that's occurring that's very historical and we'll have to see over time what this means. But we have, more blue collar moving from Democrat now to Republican side, and there's just been a shifting. There's a shifting occurring there as well. That'll be, you had much larger numbers than you've ever seen of black voters voting Republican and Hispanic voters voting Republican. So there's a shifting. Now, Democrats are going to compete with those, but that's sort of a thing to watch for in history as well. I think this will be either really unique because it's Donald Trump, or this will be the start of a bigger movement, which I think is happening, and we'll have to wait and see what that means.
I heard you say over the last few months at many events, we could be 4 months away from losing our country. Let's give that as the context for everything else we're about to talk about. What did you mean by that?
Well, what's been happening with the attack on our Supreme Court and our court system has been really, really disgraceful and very, very dangerous. We've had numerous bills coming out of the Senate especially, but even the House to take over the court in different ways, to purge justices off the court, to do a lot of things that are unconstitutional.
Bring an end to life tenure, for example.
But the one thing that it only took a majority vote, it didn't have to be a constitutional amendment, was court packing.
Yeah.
They could have added 5, 10, 15 justices.
And to help people understand, there are 9 on the court. This would be adding a 10th seat, an 11th seat, a 12th,
Yes.
all the way up to 13 at least. They had talked about adding at least 4, which would change politically the balance of the court to get the outcomes they want.
Right. But the problem is you do that once and your court is over, because it no longer is really an independent judiciary. It is now just an appendage of the political power.
Yeah.
And so whoever's in power can add however many justices they want. And we've seen this in other countries. When you do this, you're done as far as a free country. And we could have had that happen at the end of January. I mean, Kamala Harris was asked this in a town hall, just 2 weeks ago. And she refused to say that she would not pack the court. So this was a real possibility. So thank God that we don't have to worry about that at this point. And I'm hopeful that we can educate people. It doesn't matter what party you're in. Nobody wants this. I mean, everybody likes their civil liberties.
Yeah.
And you want to keep them. And so if people are educated, hopefully we can put this to rest where nobody, I don't care which party, who's in control, this should be off the table. But that is a great, great victory for America. And then the flip side of this is we're now going to have a very different appointment of judges. And, of course, we were very involved, 8 years ago And we have more data on judicial choices and the judges that are out there, and we have more data than anybody in the country. And now we're going to have to add a lot of more data, because it's not going to be just the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. It's going to be, courts below. And this could really set the next 10, 20, 30 years of our country. And so, I mean, I was just talking with some of our staff about this, that, we're going to have to raise about $3 million immediately to get going on getting the extra intensive researchers we need to get all the data together, because we have to make good decisions on these lifetime appointments to judges. And with a Senate that looks like it's going to have a pretty good margin.
It really does. We're going to talk about that in detail here in a bit.
A lot bigger than last time. It's going to give a President Trump much more leeway to go stronger and more solid with the justices and judges he picks. So that's a huge thing, too. That's going to be priority number one for us, because winning one case is important. Putting a judge on the court where you're going to have cases for the next 30 years.
It's huge.
That's
it's generational. Let's go through this an area at a time, just to help put this into the context of, again, the courts and religious freedom. First, based on past performance, how will a Trump administration look? What do we expect to happen when it comes to the courts and justices coming up? We've talked about it a bit already, but let's just delve into it.
The philosophy, and this is what President Trump pledged, and he's pledged to put originalists on the court. Originalists, just so people don't understand, there's sort of two approaches, or had been. One was the Constitution is a living, breathing document, and so the justices just kind of say, well, we got to kind of make it more today. And so they would do what they thought was good.
Yeah.
Which essentially acting like a super legislator, right? An originalist says, it doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what I think the country is today. The question is, what is the original meaning of the text?
And to put this into context, the first you talked about, the living document, folks, that's how we got Roe v. Wade.
Absolutely.
And that's how we got marriage redefined, because they said, well, it's time for this to happen. They just created a right out of thin air.
Read the Constitution as many times as you want. There's no right to an abortion in the Constitution.
Yeah.
I mean, and anybody who's honest and intelligent would tell you that. But this is how you get it from this living, breathing. Well, we had that. I mean, literally when Trump added a number of the justices who were originalists, again, they might disagree with each other over what the original meaning is.
And we might not always like what they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's their approach. For the first time in 80 years, we had that put in.
Yeah.
So I've got to think that that's what he's going to continue doing, is put originalists on the court. He now has 50 judges from below to choose from as he picks new Supreme Court justices. And so, you're probably going to have Alito. The rumors are that Justice Alito is stepping down. And then many people think maybe Clarence Thomas as well.
They're the oldest members of the court right now.
Thomas is the oldest. Now, Thomas they've been trying to bully him the last few years.
Mercilessly.
And Justice Thomas doesn't take well to bully.
No, he doesn't. No.
So there's a part of him that's saying, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I do think he understands that during the term sometime, it could be in different hands for 8 years, 12 years, and that might go to a liberal justice. And he
cares about, I've heard him speak, and he really cares about the court as an institution.
That's right.
And thinks about it at a much higher level than most of us do as far as the role of the court in American jurisprudence. He really takes it with a sincerity and a concern that most of us can't even begin to understand.
He is the most traditionalist on the court.
Yep.
He stands all alone even at times.
He's hysterically funny.
He's very bright. He's got a laugh that fills the room.
Yeah.
And so who knows whether he steps down, but most people think he probably will, or he definitely might do that because he's the oldest. Alito, all the rumors are that he is planning to step down.
Interesting.
So that's too. You could have something happen with somebody else's health.
Those would not change the balance of the court. That would just continue a conservative majority for a while. The other justice that I'm reading about in the news is Sonia Sotomayor, who's having health issues. She's also on in years at this point. That could make a significant change again in the balance of the court.
It could, yes, absolutely. And that's why it's so important that if you make these decisions, you do it well. And in the past, a lot of mistakes were made. And we thought it was because, gosh, it must be really hard to find data on people. And what we found out is, no, nobody was really doing the really intensive work to find everything out. Because when somebody's 50 years old, you really shouldn't be surprised by what they do. You know their philosophy, their approach, whether they have the courage to do the right thing even if there's pressure. And that's, we've seen, we predicted pretty much all the justices that have been picked. We've been able to predict where that would go. We've got to do that kind of intensive research now because we've got to make sure we put solid people on the court because this is the next 20 or 30 years. And it's an incredible opportunity. I mean, incredible. I mean, you talk about shaping the future of the country and our freedoms. This is a huge window. The other thing, though, is there's an urgency to getting this done because
we know we have 2 years.
Exactly.
Perhaps. I mean,
that's all we know. We got 2 years right now, and maybe more to really put some strong originalists on the court, make a huge difference for all of our religious liberty cases. We've already seen what happened last time, right?
Yeah.
We had 4 victories at the Supreme Court in 13 months. We've started to move religious freedom protections to a greater level than we've seen in over 50 years. So that's just the beginning, though, now. Now we can really set it for our children and our grandchildren. So
in summary, what I'm hearing is we've been pressing what we've referred to as our campaign called the Supreme Coup. We got this into the discussion out there in public. They got to ask questions about it on the stump.
Absolutely.
During the election season. We're going to now pivot from that to vetting of judges who might then move on up to the federal bench at the appeals court level in particular, or the Supreme Court even.
Yes, we've kind of gone from stopping the really horrible possible thing to now doing the positive.
Which is way more fun.
It is. And we've seen the results before. And that was with a 51-49 Senate. If you'll remember when Trump was appointing these Supreme Court justices, for instance.
Let's talk about the Senate, because I couldn't sleep last night until I saw that Republicans had gained control of the Senate, because I knew that even if Harris were to win somehow, that would shut down her opportunity to put judges on the court, because she would have to get through a Republican-controlled Senate. It would also stop a lot of the shenanigans as far as, for example, expanding the size of the court.
Right.
Explain to me now that we see a White House with Donald Trump back in it and a Senate with what looks like now a significant majority on the red side of the aisle, how that plays out in this placing of judges and justices on the courts.
People ask me all the time, well, what's more important to you, the Senate or the House? I'm like, well, no, it's not a question, the Senate.
Yeah.
Because we're involved in court cases, and the justices are appointed by the president, but they have to be approved by the Senate, not the House.
It is equal power, and that's what a lot of people, they kept saying, well, they stole Scalia's seat. No, they didn't, because the Senate has equal power. It's the balance of power. It's the separation of powers, but they each have a say in that, and the Senate made a choice.
Right, and that was 51-49. So you think back to Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett and these choices that are considered a little more moderate. They've kind of come the middle wing of the court. You've got Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Chief Justice Roberts kind of occupying that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people, why didn't Trump put a more conservative? Well, it was 51-49, and that 51 included like Jeff Flake, who was a more was definitely backing off when there was criticism on the judges, and then you had like Lisa Murkowski, and you have Collins, and so. You didn't really have room. Well, it looks like there's going to be a good amount of room now for a President Trump to put really strong justices on the court who are originalists. So
as we're speaking here on Wednesday morning, it looks to be at least 52, maybe 53, possibly up to 55, which would really change the dynamics in the Senate.
Makes a big difference. And so that's why, we've got to have a lot of data, and we've got to be able to share that data with the Judiciary Committee, who's going to be, questioning and making decisions, as well as with the White House. And we did this when Biden was president, but our impact was much smaller. All we could do is keep really extreme choices off the court.
Yeah.
But we now have an administration that wants the data because they want to pick originalists, which is what we want to pick, who actually go back to the original meaning of the religion clauses, and a country that was built on religious freedom. So this is a huge, huge opportunity. And we haven't even gotten into all of the religious liberty actions that President Trump and his administration took last time.
Yeah.
We've got to expect all those things are about to. I've got pages and pages and pages just because we've forgotten all the things that happen. In addition, so this is in addition to the judges, just what happens in the agencies and the departments.
And part of what the Senate does by having that larger than 51 majority is it will make it significantly easier for him to get his cabinet appointments to head those administrative agencies that do the stuff you're talking about.
Right. Well, let's take HHS.
Yeah.
One of the things they did, but most people don't notice, but very significant, they created a new position under President Trump 45.
Yeah.
That all they did was in all of our health care, they pulled together all the religious liberty and conscience protections that people have. Now think of what that means when you go through COVID and all that. And who was the person that they put in charge of that? It was a First Liberty attorney. It was Justin Butterfield who went there and worked there and then ended up coming back. So that's a significant position. They created a whole special task force within the Department of Justice just to go into all the different agencies and departments and make sure they understood the religious liberty protections and implications in that department, including the IRS and the Johnson Amendment and about going after churches, right? That was stopped during the 4 years that Trump was in. So there are just endless things, and that's not even considering the things that a Biden administration has started and now they will be pulled back, like Title IX and redefining what sex is so that now you have women, men and women's sports and women's locker rooms.
Something first done by Barack Obama, just to keep the record straight. He changed the meaning of a word and changed the impact of a law, which is completely wrong. It shouldn't be done that way.
And you've got to imagine a Trump administration, especially from the commercials they were running, right?
Yeah.
That they're going to pull back on that, which, again, these things affect religious liberty because people have beliefs about that. There are certainly many, many people of faith as a female do not want a male in their dressing room. And so of course, they affect schools that do this as well. There's a lot of Christian schools and Christian colleges and universities. So there are just a lot of things. All those lawsuits, by the way, against this new Title IX definition have been winning so far. But it would be even better if you just take it away.
Absolutely.
And I think we can expect that. So there's just a lot. I think we're going to, in our Insider, and I just tell people if you don't get our Insider, make sure you get it on Fridays. We list the 4 or 5 major articles or things. And one of our articles is going to be, okay, there's an election. What's going to happen on religious freedom that we can see already? And this is kind of a starting point. It's what did they do last time?
Yeah.
And that'll tell us a lot about some shifting and changing we're going to see.
And you can subscribe to Insider. Go to firstliberty.org. There's a subscription link on there. It's our weekly email. It's free, and it's a great way to keep up with what's going on with religious liberty in the country. Let's walk to the other end of the Capitol building briefly. The House, at this moment in time on Wednesday morning, we don't know the outcome yet of who's going to be leading the House, whether it's going to be a Republican majority or a Democrat majority. What will you be looking for as far as what happens with the House?
Well, I mean, obviously, Mike Johnson, the Speaker, worked at First Liberty as one of our attorneys, so we know Mike, and we know he's really committed to religious freedom. So if he's still the Speaker, that's, I think, a good thing for religious freedom, unless somebody else rises up and is great too. But I mean, I don't know how you can get much stronger on religious freedom than Mike Johnson. I think either way, though, whether the Republicans win or whether the Democrats win, I think if the Republicans win, it's going to be such a small margin that we're going to have a similar situation where it's going to be really hard for them to do much.
Yeah.
Because it does, out of 435 congressmen, when it takes only like 3 to stop something.
And to me, the House has the investigative power.
Yes.
So whichever party leads is going to determine the shenanigans that go on. For example, if the Democrats take a majority, there are going to be more investigations into Donald Trump and all that he's doing.
Yes.
Whereas if the Republicans maintain control, all that is going to be squelched and they'll be able to actually get stuff done. I mean, how many times did they impeach Trump the first time in
2.
the House? Because they had a Democrat majority. I mean, that's what we're looking at as far as just
on a religious liberty area, though. It's just that's why the Senate is so much more important because of the judges to what we do. The House, I think it's great. They do a lot of things that are kind of more show, like you're talking about, hold hearings, which is great because it educates people. It brings things out in the open.
Yeah.
But on a religious freedom impact.
It's really the Senate.
It's not as significant. Although it is significant, right? You could pass some. You can't pass something if you can't get through the House, right? So if you've got a good piece of legislation, it's going to need to go through the House, and you're going to need to have the House on your side. But I think that one, it's going to be close either way, and so I think it's going to be difficult to get a lot through. And I think America is probably going to continue to be frustrated that things don't get done because when you're in that kind of a situation, it's hard to get things done.
So in summary, when it comes to the courts and religious freedom, it's looking pretty good for America right now.
Absolutely. And it's from our standpoint at First Liberty, we're like, okay, we've got a record number of cases right now. We've got like 3 cases on their way to the Supreme Court. We've got, I think, 7 we're waiting for decisions at the Federal Court of Appeals. So we've got the fullest load we've ever had. But we're about to have to add an extra load, which is judges, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We're going to raise money. We're going to hire people. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we do this well, because this really is about the future for our kids and our grandkids and setting that in place for 20 years.
As we close this out, I want to give you a chance to thank the supporters who gave to the campaigns that we had going on about the courts and letting people know about the impact on judges and the culture and religious freedom. Just want to give you a chance to share from your heart, to let them know how much we appreciate what they did to be part of this.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough. There are a lot of people that pitched in on this effort to make sure that we didn't have our court destroyed from these different proposals, especially court packing, which is going to add 5 or 10 justices to the Supreme Court. What was great is our goal was really to get this into the discussion. And what's great is by the time we were at the election day, President Trump had to address it and did. Kamala Harris was forced to address it in a town hall just a week or so before the election. Mm-hmm. It was amazing to watch articles in the Wall Street Journal and people getting on TV, and they were clearly speaking our information, and they didn't even know it maybe. And so thank you for really causing there to be a national discussion, which I think is not only great for stopping it now, but is going to be really important for laying the foundation where hopefully we don't ever have this come as close to reality as it did this time. So thank you for making a difference. And I also want to thank, the justices can't do a campaign. So we got to defend people who are doing everything in their power to issue the decisions they think are right, and yet they're kind of defenseless. And so we got to defend our court and the thing that's really special about this country, which is the rule of law. So thank you for being a part of that, helping to fund that, praying for that, getting the word out to people. We've got a victory today on that, and now we can go to the positive, which is going to be a lot of fun as well.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate you. Look forward to what's next.
Amen.
There's a lot ahead for First Liberty. If you'd like to be part of this, just go to firstliberty.org, and Kelly mentioned our weekly insider newsletter. You can subscribe to that on our homepage. Just look for the subscribe button, and it'll say it's free, comes out every Friday. It will keep you up to date on all the cases that we work on and other things dealing with religious freedom in America. First Liberty is fighting for what matters most.